Alright, we kind of assumed that Tesla would dominate and the Chinese would also come into the market and eat up whatever ICE market share remained. And I have admittedly been giving the legacy autos a hard time about how much they will struggle. But after more thorough analysis on the Chinese EVs, then I may be somewhat wrong. The point is, it's unlikely that Tesla can make the EV transition alone. They need help from other manufacturers. Elon has even been vocal about this. Not only that, he is doing what he can to facilitate their transition, open patents, offering charging networks, and FSD. Look, I'm not worried about anyone competing with Tesla. No one can. I'm just curious as to how this will all play out, and like to think it through. It's a really exciting time, but my analysis of the Chinese does give me renewed faith in legacy autos transitioning. So again, for those of you who think I am being biased, then explain how I can be so fickle to change my mind like this. I'm being totally objective here. I think the Chinese make inferior autos. That's what my research has told me, and this shouldn't be that surprising considering how they are trying to make them so cheap. Whereas I think legacy autos are obviously taking a much longer time to make their EVs, but they should be of an acceptable quality to the largest auto markets outside of China, Europe and the US. I mean, if you've owned a European car, then you expect a certain level of quality. I always used to buy European cars. I could never stand driving a Toyota, but perhaps I'm not the right target market. I love driving a driver's car. There are also plenty of people out there who love their Toyotas too, but their Toyotas cost half the price of, say, a BMW. The Chinese EVs will cost more. They will cost more than a Tesla, comparing like for like. Okay, perhaps not so much if Tesla keep raising their prices like this, because they're just too popular. But my guess is that Chinese EVs will simply not be of an adequate standard that Europeans and Americans have come to expect, especially when we compare range and performance. Sure, perhaps the likes of NIO isn't so bad, but their prices are not as competitive, as they are using nickel batteries to get these specifications. Also, if you're using nickel batteries, you can't ramp up very quickly. Anyway, I'm mainly talking about legacy autos, and it would appear they're not messing around. Supposedly spending $30 billion or so in transitioning to EVs, the Chinese do not have these kinds of funds available to them. This is a huge investment. It may sound ridiculous, but look at the valuation Rivian has achieved. It could be justified. Ford are going big. So are GM, so is Volkswagen. They are investing in this future, and they likely know that they will have the support or safety net of the US government in doing this, i.e. your tax dollars. GM are planning on having 100 gigawatt hours of battery factories, with supposed growth to 150 to 200 gigawatt hours. They are not messing around. As long as they aren't all used in Hummers, then they might average perhaps 60 kilowatt hours per vehicle, which is potentially about 3 million vehicles, likely mainly for the US market. By this stage, Tesla could be around 7 or 8 million in the US, and perhaps Ford are also on a few million, and maybe Stellantis have some too. In other words, we're already possibly at around 15 million electric vehicles in the US, with Tesla at a 50% market share. This is not far off the entire US market. However, I don't think that legacy autos are discounting the fact that Tesla will eat up this much of their market share. Bear in mind, this is future Tesla that may be offering perhaps 10 more different models than compared to the 4 they have on offer today. This may also be supplemented by robotaxis. In other words, I don't think legacy autos will be making ICE vehicles anymore at this stage. Tesla will be eating up all of that. And remember, the legacy autos will continue to offer a $12,500 rebate for 10 years on their EVs. The Chinese can't compete. They're relying on LFP batteries. Legacy have done some serious market research, and as Mary Barra said, they need about 300 miles of range. I thought they were being obtuse not using LFP batteries before, until I realized just how far ahead Tesla was with their powertrains, motors and software, that there's a reason Tesla can get away with LFP batteries in the US market. And I don't think the Chinese are going to catch up, especially when Tesla make their own LFP batteries. Therefore, I have to hand it to legacy autos. They probably did pick the right battery technology after all, as long as GM stops using battery pouches like they did in the Bolt, and are going to in the Hummer as well. I think they're creating prismatic batteries in their new factories, maybe. They claim that they can get their battery costs to $100 per kilowatt hour. This is probably about the price that the Chinese manufacturers are paying for the LFP batteries from CATL, which means the Chinese lose their competitive advantage. Of course, BYD being vertically integrated with their own LFP batteries is still an advantage, supposedly at around $65 a kilowatt hour, and more energy dense than the CATL batteries. And as I say, BYD does have a likely chance of survival, and they may even find some reasonable markets outside China, but I can't see them being a major player internationally. Anyway, Legacy also need to work on their battery chemistry. They can reverse engineer Tesla's 4680s as much as they can, and perhaps work out how to remove cobalt. I doubt they'll produce dry battery electrodes, at least anytime soon, or tabless design batteries, but possibly include silicon in the anodes for better energy density. Anyway, they have about 10 years to get this sorted. The US government have got their back in what could end up being the biggest subsidy we've ever seen, provided the US dollar can remain. It will be harder if the government can't print their own money anymore. But in the meantime, the legacy autos can grow their PHEV business, whilst they're waiting for their battery factories to start production. But once they achieve this level and they have exhausted all their best brands like the F-150, Hummer, Mustang, and even when their rebates expire, we have to ask, why would consumers pay more for these cars over a Tesla? Is it that Tesla will simply not make enough cars even if they have enough demand, meaning the waiting lists could be too long? Oh wait, Tesla have raised their prices significantly too. This means that the legacy EVs are not looking quite as expensive anymore either. Perhaps consumers have to accept that if you want an EV, well, they will simply cost more than an ICE car ever did, at least the initial purchase. However, the cost of ownership should still be less, especially if these cars will stay on the road that much longer without the engines falling apart. But EVs, in theory, could be produced at a lower cost than ICE, especially if battery costs come down enough within time. And like I say, Legacy has 10 years to get this sorted. They may also eventually decide to copy some of Tesla's manufacturing techniques, like die-cast molds. I think they'll focus more on economies of scale and dramatically cut down on the variety of models they offer too. They'll make advancements in powertrains and motors. Alright, Tesla will always be ahead, but Tesla can't satisfy every consumer. A lot of people only buy Mercedes. Although the younger generations these days only seem to care about Teslas. They don't have posters of Lamborghinis and Ferraris on their walls anymore. If there is some Chinese presence, then we have to wonder if it will last. When legacy autos ramp up their EVs with longer range and better performance while simultaneously Tesla keep ramping up too, yes, Legacy are going to be cannibalizing their ICE business, or at least gradually in stages, first migrating to PHEV. There will likely be the advent of robotaxis as well, along with Teslas simply lasting that much longer than traditional cars and staying up to date with the latest features. These two factors will mean that demand for autos could actually dwindle and there is a smaller market. What will be left then? No one will stop Tesla's market share proliferating. Will Tesla eventually decide that's all the EVs they want to make and legacy autos have got the rest covered, along with the Chinese too, accompanied further by robotaxis? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm still trying to get my head around all this. I'm really not trying to fit any narrative and just trying to say Tesla will win and has no competition. I don't need to support that narrative. It's plainly obvious this is the case. Like I said, Tesla will keep gaining more and more market share the more they ramp up. It's a zero-sum game. Every time Tesla ramps up, someone else is losing ground, especially when they have a $25,000 EV. Anyway, as usual, I look forward to hearing all your feedback and see if we can try and work out how this might play out. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.